might offend some of you, but I'll try to say it in the nicest way possible. I'm not big on A Quiet Place as everyone else is. I saw this film back in 2018. It was a huge headliner at the South by Southwest Film Festival, and it was the directorial debut of one John Krasinski. I thought to myself, would you look at that? Jim from The Office taking a stab at the horror genre on his very first filmmaking attempt. And the concept sounded interesting enough. A post-apocalyptic horror film in which blind, super-hearing aliens have taken over the world, and it is shot in the perspective of a family trying to do whatever it takes to survive in a world gone silent. Now, I never got a chance to review the movie on my channel, but what I will say upon my first time watching it, it was fine. It was okay. It has some miscues on its own, particularly with the VFX compositing for the creature design and some contrived story beats that felt pretty flimsy. Though I thought the performances were exceptional, the music and the sound design were utilized with precision, and the film had a few moments of genuine dread that were well directed by John Krasinski. However, as I began preparation for its sequel 3 years later, I realized upon another rewatch, this movie does not hold up whatsoever. And trust me, all of the problems that I've had with the original, such as the contradictory, selective hearing from the Ray Charles aliens, the messy world building, and the characters prolonging their problems just by doing nonsensical things just to progress the story, were amplified by the cosmically overrated mess of a film known as A Quiet Place Part 2. As much as I hope that it would be a marginal improvement over its predecessor, Part 2 ended up being worse than before. Barring the sensational performances and appropriately bleak cinematography, the plot is ridiculously contrived for the sake of suspense, topped off with our main numbskull characters whose decision-making are so inept that you will facepalm with the force of a punch from Mike Tyson. The world building is shallow and at times ludicrous, and this movie single-handedly destroys the entire threat of the Stevie Wonder aliens with one solitary scene. It is absolutely farcical that I can't even believe that someone wrote this down by design and never even thought to reconsider. Regardless, after the success of the first two films, it was inevitable that a third movie would be produced. However, what we are offered this time is a prequel spin-off that is set in the same universe, going by the name of A Quiet Place Day One, giving us an origin story, kind of, showcasing what happened at the beginning of an apocalypse that turned the world silent with a new set of actors and a new brand of characters taking place in a different environment, being New York City. My thoughts? Well, it is better than A Quiet Place Part 2. However, quality-wise, it's probably on par with The Quiet Place Part 1 and can be easily summarized by this quote: "The more things change, the more they stay the same." Meaning that no matter where the franchise takes us next, and no matter what characters we are supposed to attach ourselves to, the problems are still left unrevised. According to information that we've known from the original movie based on newspaper clippings, the movie goes as follows. When several meteorites of the 128 across the world that should have razed the earth and rendered it into a Fallout-style wasteland, especially the one that hit Mexico, smash into the middle of New York City filled with extraterrestrial Helen Keller aliens, terrorizing and slicing apart everyone making a noise in its path. The film focuses on a cancer patient, Samira, her service cat, Frodo, and other survivors that she encounters to figure out a way to escape the city. Sounds pretty tight, simple, and straight to the point. Now let us talk about how broken it is. For this latest horror show, there's no entirely new or unique techniques for this franchise to take when it comes to scaring the audience. You do have your basic false jump scares preceded by very loud noises and adrenaline-fueled action set pieces in which our characters are being chased by the Andrea Bocelli aliens. Wait a minute, hold on. They're called Death Angels? Yeah, sure, why not? But what the film acquires, mirroring previous installments, is the dreary atmosphere of an apocalyptic New York City. The grim and gray color palette appropriately matches the helplessness and the dire tone of the film, and the score by Alexis Grapsis captures that terror, giving us a good idea that our main characters and the citizens of New York City are witnessing hell on earth. However, several of these moments and elements of horror register as defective throughout the entire film because of this egregious issue that has been established by this franchise. And you know what I'm talking about. The Death Angel's super hearing is selective as heck. I still can't believe they're called that. Ever since A Quiet Place Part 1, it cannot make up its mind as to how their hearing operates. In Part 1, we're told that it is attracted to a loud noise of any kind, like, say, an electronic toy rocket, for example. However, it is then shown that the hearing is so powerful that it can hear a silent ticking kitchen clock and attacks it after it goes off, yet it doesn't hear Evelyn's heavy breathing when she's been stabbed in the foot by a nail that shouldn't have even been there in the first place, and the fact that she's also pregnant and her water broke. Or when they establish that they can't hear it through a constant sound such as a waterfall, but when it is right next to a never-ending sound of falling water as the basement's flooding, never mind the fact that he can also hear behind the water Evelyn's crying baby. The Death Angel, such a stupid name, can hear Marcus falling through the silo doors hundreds of feet away from the other side of the Abbott's farm. You see my point? In day one, the same inconsistency keeps happening. In the first act, our characters are in such a hurry to turn off a malfunctioning generator, none of the creatures are present whatsoever. But apparently it takes a small shirt rip for one of the characters to meet the Grim Reaper. Also, when one of our characters named Eric gets out of the water after a massacre of aliens killing innocent civilians and is heavily gasping for air, the Death Angels, you know what, I'm just gonna call them aliens. The aliens just decide not to attack a man heavily gasping for air, but don't worry, one of them does in a later scene. Sometimes the sound design will make an object much louder than it would be in order for the aliens to attack, such as a suitcase falling on its side that sounds like a bomb just went off. Seriously, we're 3 movies in and I keep asking this question. If I can't buy the established rules for the things that I'm supposed to be afraid of, what makes this movie think that I'm supposed to buy into the plots of any of these movies? Also, speaking of water, I have to talk about this. How is it that the military figured out that the Kenshi aliens can't swim, and they never figured out a solution to kill them all upon this discovery? You mean to tell me that the military couldn't get like a battleship or a carrier, for example, guide the aliens to that ship, send it all the way across the ocean, all the way to the Statue of Liberty, and blow the ships to Kingdom Come when they cross shallow waters? Or even make a bridge connected to a platform on the Atlantic Ocean, guide the aliens to that noise, and have a bunch of helicopters shoot down the platform, killing the aliens and leaving them to drown. The movie attempts to retcon what happened in Part 2 by having the aliens realize that they're almost way too close to water rather than blindly jump into the lake when they hear a sound. But sorry, too late. The damage is already done. How has it been 470 plus days and the military hasn't ended the invasion in less than a few weeks? Speaking of characters, and this plays into the horror and script side of things, there's another one that has been featured on commercials and featurettes to no end, except that the character is not a human, but a cat. And the thing about Frodo is that he is one of the most irritating and annoying aspects of this entire movie, and his only existence diffuses any kind of tension that this movie would have going for it. Allow me to count the ways. 1. The cat serves as a plot device to get our characters from one direction all the way to the next when all hope appears to be lost. 2. Even for a service cat, this feline just reacts to anything however it wants to for the sake of the story, just to set up a scene of suspense for absolutely no reason. It can run from the sound of passing helicopters all the way to the theater doors, meowing and bumping into Jingle Bell hats without a care in the world like a regular cat would, only so we can have a scene in which the aliens burst through the theater doors, seeing if anybody is around. It could run or freak out at the sound of passing helicopters over the theater, but it wouldn't even do the same or even flee from the sound of a horde of Saul of Tarsus aliens chasing our protagonists as they try to get to the subway. There's even a point where Eric is searching for transdermal patches for Samira over at a convenience store, to which Frodo arrives at the convenience store to his surprise, and both of them try to make it all the way to where he and Samira are being kept safe. On the way, they discover something that we haven't even seen from the aliens, and it's a very interesting addition, where these aliens basically act like ants as they serve a queen and operate as a colony inside of this crater, while even managing to make their own food to eat. Amidst the discovery, Eric has to get Frodo from a construction beam that he climbed up to for no reason whatsoever, because apparently Frodo is Lucifer, acting as if he wants Eric to screw up, and it almost happens. But because the Louis Braille alien's selective hearing is really more tied to how the plot dictates, everything is fine. I swear to you, this cat is only designed just to get our characters into dangerous situations or to provide a cheap scare to the audience. And I am shocked that not a single extra in this movie doesn't turn to Samira and go, "Why do you have that cat in here? Toss it out for the safety of humanity. That thing will get us all killed." Now, to be fair, I like cats, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give this movie credit just by virtue of a cat simply existing. I didn't like how the cats were handled in the Marvels, and Frodo in Day One is no exception. But, of course, this movie isn't all downside, just 60% of it. There's some great stuff in this movie that I feel is warranted of appraisal. So what did I like about the movie aside from the hopeless, dark atmosphere? Much like the previous two entries, the acting is phenomenal across the board. This isn't Lupita Nyong'o's first rodeo into the horror genre, as shown in Jordan Peele's movie Us. Nevertheless, she is still terrific as the character Samira. She does a great job embodying the nonchalant and going through the motions apathy as a character that is faced with the fate of succumbing to her own terminal illness. She excels graciously as a silent scream queen when she is faced with one of the gigantic, dangerous aliens. Joseph Quinn serves as a very good co-star to Lupita as the law student Eric. Though his character doesn't appear until the beginning of the second act of the film, but once he does, he is truly remarkable in his role. Starting off very vulnerable, anxious, and helpless, but eventually evolves, toughens, committing brave acts, and grows chemistry with Samira as the film progresses, culminating into a very touching scene that takes place where the two meet up at a bar somewhere. And of course, the cinematography is sublime. A grand number of shots have a purpose to them, from wide shots of a collapsing civilization that are both haunting and breathtaking, to the close-ups personifying the claustrophobic dread of our protagonists. But yeah, gotta admit, wasn't big on A Quiet Place Day One. 3 movies in, and we're still repeating the same problems as before, even if this film has the strongest emotional character growth in the entire franchise. I seriously have no clue where you go with this franchise after this, because after the nail in the coffin that was A Quiet Place Part 2, there is no original idea for this franchise that will turn this franchise around into a direction that doesn't go anywhere but down. So to all my viewers who plan to see this movie in the theater, don't make a noise or the aliens will kill you. Then again, results may vary. My name is Nukem. You, my friends, have been blown away.